Hello, everyone. My name is Itamar Ben David. I'm a tour guide here in Israel. I live in Jerusalem. And today I wanted to talk to you about Jerusalem Day and Shavuot, which is coming up. Jerusalem Day was just earlier this week, and Shavuot will be celebrated at Saturday and Sunday that is coming up. So I'm going to ask the help of my friends at Simplex Mapping Solution. And with their beautiful model of Jerusalem and Israel over here, I'm going to tell that story. So here we are above Israel. If you haven't been to Israel, it's really simple. We have the Mediterranean on our west coast. We have three other bodies of water, like the Sea of Galilee. You can see up here, the Dead Sea, which is the lowest place on earth, and the Red Sea and the city of Eilat down south. If you look at the colors of Israel, you can see the Negev Desert, which is a very big one. It's a part of the Sahara. We have Mediterranean weather in most of the country, and in the Galilee, we even have some high mountains with snow. In order to tell the story of Jerusalem Day, I'm going to start with Tel Aviv. So Tel Aviv is the major city on the coast of Israel. And from Tel Aviv, we have a road to Jerusalem, Highway 1, Road 1. And in order to understand Jerusalem Day, we need to go back to the Independence War. So during the Independence War, the main front that was challenging the Israeli forces was actually the front to Jerusalem vis-a-vis the Jordanian army. And a lot of the battles took place over here on these hills, protecting this road and securing the safe passage between these two centers of population. Tel Aviv, that back then had 250,000 people, and Jerusalem, that had about 100,000 Jews at that time. So keeping the corridor, that's how it was called, the corridor to Jerusalem safe and open for the Israelis to go back and forward with supply and with soldiers, that was the major concern of David Ben-Gurion at that time. Once the war was over, in 1949, we signed the last few armistice agreements. Once the war was over, Jordan was well established in the West Bank. So right now I'm going to draw the line that is called the green line. That's the armistice line between Israel and Jordan of that time. Okay, it's not super accurate, so pardon me. I'm just trying to give you a sense of it. So approximately this way, that's the corridor to Jerusalem. So the coastline was in the hands of Israel. And you can see that West Jerusalem, which was the Jewish side of Jerusalem. Here we are, I'm going to draw this. Okay, that's approximately Highway 1, not super accurate, but this side was Israeli, okay, within that corridor. And the Jordanians were well established all around, okay, in the West Bank. So from the north, from the east, and from the south, that was in Jordanian hands. The Jordanians had a very simple strategy. In case there is another war starting with Israel, they wanted their forces, their battalions, to attack from the north and from the south, and to cut off Jerusalem, Jewish Jerusalem, from Israel, from the rest of the country. That was the plan. It's called Tariq Plan, and that's what they planned to do in 1967. So once the war broke, there was a major concern that something like that should happen, and the Israeli divisions were sent to Jerusalem. 3 divisions were sent to Jerusalem to attack from the north, from the south, and from the and to the east. Okay, in order to secure Jerusalem, Jewish Jerusalem. Another concern that the commanders had at that time is Mount Scopus. Mount Scopus was an enclave, okay, it was like an Israeli enclave in Jordan. Today, the Hebrew University is over there. There was a hospital and the British cemetery from First World War. And the Mount Scopus had about 80 soldiers, a company of soldiers. And again, an enclave disconnected from the rest of Israel. There was a major concern that the soldiers will fall and maybe even be killed by the Jordanian legions. And so the commanders of the army told, okay, we have to connect between West Jerusalem, Jewish Jerusalem, and Mount Scopus. That was the plan. If you look carefully, this is again the Hebrew University campus. And on the left, you can see on this side, the Temple Mount, which we will get to in one moment. Okay, let's take a look. One of the most furious and famous battles that took place in the Six-Day War in Jerusalem is called the Ammunition Hill, the battle on the Ammunition Hill. It was a military base from the days of the British, from the days of the British Mandate, and the Jordanians took over that and really fortified that place. From like in the model, we can actually see the trenches, okay, and the bunkers that the Jordanians created over there in order to secure not just the base, but again, all of East Jerusalem, secure their lines. So furious battle took place over here. Almost 40 Israeli paratroopers died in combat, and about 70 Jordanian soldiers. And again, from here, you can actually see all the trenches and the bunkers. So you can understand that was one furious battle. Once the battle was over, the road to Mount Scopus was safe. The Israeli forces moved on to Mount Scopus. And at that point, Mota Gur, the commander of the paratroopers, finds himself on the Mount of Olives. Jerusalem, the old city of Jerusalem, is completely surrounded with the Israeli army. And now the army is waiting for a command to breach into the old city and take over the old city. There was a major concern as far as the government concerned that they had a major concern. What should be the destiny of the old city? I mean, the holy sites of Judaism is over there, but also Islam, okay, Al-Aqsa Mosque, and Christianity, Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And young Israel at that time, 19 years old, 2.5 million people, the government was not sure that this is the right moment to upset the rest of the world. Anyway, after debates that took quite a few hours, they decided, yes, this is an historical moment and we have to move on. We'll take over the old city of Jerusalem. So, nevertheless, that's what happened. The Israeli paratroopers and other divisions moved on to conquer the old city. The paratroopers came from the Mount of Olives through Lion Gate, raided the Temple Mount, and ended up over here at the Western Wall. So there are famous pictures of the paratroopers crying, singing, and praying at the Western Wall. Rabbi Goren blowing the shofar. For the first time, the old city of Jerusalem is under Jewish sovereignty, under Israeli sovereignty, since the days of the Maccabees from the 2nd century BC. So quite a moment as far as the Jewish people concerned. Jerusalem Day happened 1 week before the celebration of Shavuot. Shavuot, the festival of the harvest, or the festival of weeks. Okay, it has quite a few names, and that was the moment that the Western Wall Plaza was created. I want to talk a little bit about the Temple Mount, just to say a few words about it, and in the context of Shavuot and the Jewish pilgrimage to Jerusalem. So over here, the Golden Dome, the Dome of the Rock. Today, it's a Muslim shrine, but back then in the days of Solomon, that was the first temple. And later on, the second temple was built. And over here, there was the temple itself and the altar. So every pilgrimage, Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot, there is a certain sacrifice that is taking place. And I think it's quite interesting to see how it goes. Okay, so just to point out, the location of the temple was over here, where the Golden Dome, and the location of the altar was approximately over here. Okay, not the best drawings, but just so you'll get a sense of it. So every festival, every pilgrimage, a different sacrifice was taking place. So on Passover, it's the springtime, the time that the sheeps, the young baby sheeps are being born, the lambs. So therefore, the main sacrifice of Passover is the lamb. Historically speaking, in the Bible, we read about the sacrificing the lambs in Egypt in order to protect the firstborns of the Israelites. Okay, they took the blood from these lambs and put on the doorposts in order to protect the firstborns of Israel once the angel of death raided Egypt and killed the firstborns of the Egyptians. So that again explains the lambs. Okay, on Shavuot, a different type of sacrifice, the two breads. Okay, two breads made of the first wheat of that year. Okay, so the two breads, sacrifice not of animals but plants. Okay, plants. And lastly, on Sukkot, there's a lot of sacrifice. There was a massive barbecue taking place here in the temple. But I would say that the most special sacrifice over there on Sukkot was the water, actually. Okay, pouring water on the altar, bringing about the rainy season, a blessed rainy season. So you can see Passover lambs, as this is the time that the lambs are being born. Shavuot, the wheat, okay, sacrificing or giving as an offering the two breads, okay, made of wheat. So we'll have a blessed season of harvest, and not just of wheat, but also all the other fruits. And lastly, Sukkot, water for the rainy season. So the festival of Shavuot ends a very long time of 7 weeks between Passover and Shavuot, which are a unique time in Israel, because this is the time that back in the days, the children of Israel walked from Egypt for 7 weeks to Mount Sinai. To receive, to get the Torah in Mount Sinai from God. I want to connect that to another important site in Jerusalem, which is Mount Zion and the Room of the Last Supper. And I want to explain how it works, the Jewish Shavuot and the Christian Pentecost, okay? The 50th day after the burial and resurrection of Jesus. So 50 days after Easter, basically. There is the Christian celebration of Pentecost. So over here, we are on Mount Zion. You can see in the distance, you can see the Mount of Olives right over here. You can see the Temple Mount with the Golden Dome, and Mount Zion is a little bit outside of the old city walls. You can see there's a massive church over there. It's called the Dormition Church, the place where Mary, mother of Jesus, passed away, fell into eternal sleep. But this is not my focus. My focus is actually this room, okay? Just over here. This is the room of the Last Supper and the location of the Christian Pentecost. So that's how it looks like. Historically speaking, there was a random little place, random little attic of some random Jewish person, and Jesus and the apostles rented this room from him. Okay, so it didn't look like Leonardo da Vinci's famous painting. Okay, it was much smaller room, an attic, and the building that we see now is mainly from the days of the Crusaders, totally different thing. This way or the other, I want to explain the Pentecost. Okay, so in the book of Acts, it says that on the 50th day, the early Christian community, the apostles and other followers assembled in the room of the Last Supper, and fire fell from the sky, and they start to speak in many tongues and many languages. Okay, so here again, the room of the Last Supper. And we better understand the story of the room of the Last Supper by looking back at the Old Testament. Yeah, and for Christians of you, looking back at the Old Testament really explains the stories. So what happened exactly in the Jewish Shavuot, okay? The children of Israel were saved from the bondage of Egypt, walked in the desert for 7 weeks, and on the 50th day received the word of God, the Torah, in Hebrew. In the case of Christianity, Jesus in the story of Easter releases mankind from the bondage of sin. Okay, now the gates to heaven are open, and 7 weeks later, the early Christian community is gathering over here in their own special Mount Sinai, in a place where fire falls from the sky. And this time the Torah is not given, the word of God, the Torah is not given only in Hebrew, but in all languages. So in many ways, you can consider the room of the Last Supper as the Christian Mount Sinai. I hope that you find that interesting. Okay, so thank you very much for that. And I hope you enjoyed it. With the help of Simplex, I tried to tell the story of the reunification of Jerusalem and the story of Shavuot, Pentecost. And with that, I'm going to conclude. So thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next one.